Hello, hello, hello. It's cooler and everybody's chatty. Maybe you'll snuggle later. It's kind of nice. So you ready? It's going to be one of those nights. You ready? Let's try this. Welcome back to the 37th Summer Fishtrap Gathering of Writers. Thank you. Can you believe it's Thursday already? Oh, my body can believe it's Thursday already, but yes, thank you for coming back. We've rounded the bend. There's only 2 more nights left, if you can believe this. But the temperature, I know. My dogs will be happy when this is over, but you are lovely, and it's been a wonderful, wonderful week so far. So we've got another great evening planned for you. Again, we want to welcome the folks that are joining us online, whether you're joining us now or in the future, and this will be like time travel, and you can go out to like I was there. So welcome. This is, again, like we say, our fourth night, I can count, fourth night of readings from our wonderful faculty at Summer Fishtrap. Again, as we said every night, we want to thank the Kinsman Foundation, our partners at Willow Lake Lodge, Eastern Oregon University Master of Fine Arts and Creative Writing Program. Let me hear from the MFA students now. Wowzers. Jeez. Are you guys all tired? Is that what happened? Okay, all right. We'll give you another chance at this later. So I also want to thank, again, the Book Loft. How many of you stopped by the Book Loft, bought a book this week? Thank you. There will be 3 more you're going to want to buy tonight, I can promise. So please check by them. The Willow County Chamber of Commerce. I know that's funny. We love the Willow County Chamber of Commerce. They will give you information about everything you need to know about this place, so please check them out. And then Terminal Gravity. How many of you stopped by Terminal Gravity in the last week? How many of you are planning to stop by Terminal Gravity before you leave? There you go. All right. How many of you have Terminal Gravity in your house right now? Okay, that's another thing. Before we get going with the readings tonight, I did want to make an official honest-to-gosh push. The silent auction is open. We have, for locals, you're going to get excited about this, the last 2, seriously, planters from Alderslope Nursery that we were told Nathan Slinker almost had to beat people off with a stick. There are those 2 beautiful terracotta pots that are sitting out on the porch that have been there all week. Those are available for auction. If you live here, you know those are hard to come by. You also have a 2-night stay at the Zen House Kaminka, which is a remarkable building. It was a Kaminka house that was brought over. It's a 90-year-old building that was disassembled and brought over from Japan and reassembled as a Zen spa, a place to go and retreat. We have 2-night stay there. It's only been open for just a couple of months. We also have, I'm not going to do this, but 2 18-hole plus cart to 18, can you tell I don't golf? 18-hole plus golf at the Alpine Meadows, and then if you want to try your luck at getting a couple of tram tickets, those are also there among some other great things. So, shall we hear from one of our favorite readers in the world? All right. I am going to speak for Mike and I think I can do this with confidence that we've been trying to get this woman back to Willow County for a bit, since pre-pandemic. She led Outpost on the Zumwalt, among other things, and her students came back all doughy-eyed, and we fell in love. And we are so glad that she's back this year. So Amy Irvine's memoir, Trespass, Living at the Edge of a Promised Land, received the Orion Book Award, the Ellen Malloy Desert Writers Award, and the Colorado Book Award. Desert Cabal, A New Season in the Wilderness, is a feminist response to Western wilderness icon Edward Abbey's Desert Solitaire, and was included in Orion Magazine's 25 Most Read Stories of the Decade. Outside's Adventure Canon, Backpackers' New Wilderness Classics, and recommended reads from Stanford University's climate scientists. Irvine's essays have appeared in the Best American Science and Nature Writing and Best American Food Writing series. Ooh, that sounds fun. And she's a contributing editor for Orion. For over a decade, she's taught fiction and nonfiction at the Mountain View MFA program at Southern New Hampshire University. She's also taught for Outpost, Whitman College's Semester in the West, Free Flow Institute, and Orion's Environmental Writing Workshops, both at both the Omega Institute in New York and the American Museum of Natural History Research Station in Arizona. So in other words, Amy goes everywhere, writes about all sorts of wonderful things, and now tonight you get to hear her too. So please, please welcome Amy Irvine back to the Fishtrap stage.
I love my year-longs already. Can you hear them? I paid them to do that. I'm so lucky and overjoyed to be here with everybody. I have fallen in love with every single one of you that I've had the chance to talk to and hear read, and it gives me hope in humanity and where we are headed when I come to a place like this and I see and hear all of you. So thank you so much. This is like what we need a lot of. I'm going to read tonight from a new memoir that's coming out with Spiegel and Grau. I just turned it in after 15 years of work on it. I had a few glitches along the way, lost a contract. I mean, you name it. It's been through it, but it needed this long. So I'm going to read the opening scene from it. It's called Almost Animal. And it's about, among other things, being a new mother with undiagnosed postpartum depression and psychosis, and also my new child's undiagnosed nocturnal epilepsy, which was pretty severe. A little bit of a trigger warning. It does mention very briefly sexual violence and a hate crime, and it very briefly mentions body weight, which in no way reflects my feelings about body shapes and sizes. It's a reflection of the medical establishment that was trying to diagnose me, or judge me, really, gaslight me, actually. So I met the placenta eaters upriver. It was a cool, wind-scoured morning in a posh Colorado mountain town, a town that feigns grace and grit, but like all mountain towns, has sold its soul to the highest bidders. A town where Oprah and Tom Cruise own second homes, and where my husband has taken a job. Real estate law wasn't Herb's thing. He'd earned his degree to save the world, not sell it off. He hated the commute from our Mesa 2, where he'd constructed our small, no-frills house while my body built a baby named Ruby. But we needed the cash that his job afforded. Our child's medical bills loom as large as our local mountains. We're talking peaks that measure 14,000 feet above sea level, or they used to. They're shorter now, thanks to the oceans rising. The day I met these other mothers, they pushed infants in all-weather, high-clearance strollers with thick off-road tires and serious brakes. These rigs are in no way overkill, not in this upper right quadrant of the Four Corners, where Colorado meets up with Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico at neat right angles, where terrain and weather had swung from one extreme to the next long before our species cranked up the Earth's thermostat. Here, at the northeastern end of the American Southwest, we add and subtract clothes by the minute. For even the most benign outing by car, we brace for run-ins with flash floods and wildfire. Just that morning, on the way to the posh mountain town's pharmacy to pick up more medication, I'd steered just clear of deadly rockfall. The road home was closed until the boulders were cleared, so after I picked up the drugs, I took Ruby to the posh town's park. The women stopped to introduce themselves as I straddled a backless park bench to change a diaper. When mother number one asked where we lived, I said 2,000 feet below in an affordable zip code, another ecosystem in every sense of the word. Oh, that's where we'll walk this weekend, mother number two said. In unison, the women said I should join them. When the mothers followed up by phone, I made excuses not to go. In the background, Herb, a red-haired, wide-eyed Catholic from Detroit, shook his head and mouthed, "Go!" The man loves everything this side of the Rockies, but thinks those of us who were born and raised here are much too aloof, that we require too much space and distance. He finds this to be especially true of his wife, now that she's a mother. I'm not as isolated as he thinks. Herb's own mom, Ruby's Nana, drives over a 12,000-foot mountain pass just to babysit in our square foot house while I work at a desk in what we pretend is Ruby's bedroom, though it's the size of a closet and the child has yet to sleep there. Every week, for 3 nights in a row, Nana sleeps in this same small room in a twin bed crammed between the wall and my desk. Meanwhile, Herb camps on the couch in the living room or anywhere that's not with me because I'm in the master bedroom, lying stock still alongside our daughter. During this time, the whole house grinds to a silent halt, and I don't move a muscle. If I do, Ruby wakes and loses her shit. All night, every night, the poor kid writhes against my skin like a grubworm on hot pavement. No one knows why, but I suspect my own inner restlessness to be the cause. Ruby adores her dad, but will only sleep with him for a few hours at a time because my milk, not pumped but straight from the source, is the only thing that soothes. I spend most nights on my left side, her favorite side, so she can nurse every 10 to 15 minutes. My weight, which ballooned by 50% while pregnant, has dropped to 100 pounds. My teeth are crumbling out of my head. If I try to put an inch between the baby and me, her whole nervous system seizes. It's still stultified hours later. The first diagnosis was colic, which the doctors said she'd outgrow. Then they said we should have trained her to sleep alone, to self-soothe, as if we didn't try. Now I blame my daughter's anxious antics on the inexplicable terror that came over me at conception, that never left, that still dogs me like a shadow. Then there's the violent nausea that for 9 months was abated by only lime popsicles. Every day, all day, I sprawled on the couch, my body flu-like, miasmic. I either slept or binged Law & Order SVU. I took pride in a strict 1-to-1 ratio of frozen citrus to episodes. Every other bit of daily discipline, work, hygiene, exercise, it all ground to a halt. Sticks and wrappers piled up around my prostrate form while our dogs circled and groaned in boredom. At times, things took a hard right into paranoid. I braced for misfortune and malevolence, hoping Detective Benson would make a cameo in these foothills of southeast Utah's LaSalle Mountains outside of Moab. I needed her to take down the rapists and serial killers that lurked behind every rock. I needed her because if one of those guys pounced, I was too big, too sick to run, let alone put up a fight. I mentioned this to a doctor who reminded me that I lived in what was one of the lowest of low-crime neighborhoods in the nation. But there would come a day, after we'd left Utah for Colorado for good, when my fears would be justified. 2 women, a married couple, would be camped on a ridge above our last Utah home. During the night, they were sexually assaulted, tortured, and murdered. The Moab cops will refuse to consider this a hate crime, as if rape and torture were ever anything but. Our house, the murder scene, both were just 99 miles from our new Colorado home, which Herb worked on every second he wasn't at the office. Meanwhile, I was back in Utah gestating, and when he passed through, he'd see that I'd hardly moved since the last time, and that I'd grown inexplicably larger. The man worships physical fitness, so my supersized self alarmed. The doctor and midwife agreed. 65 pounds and 3 chins were too much on such a small-boned woman. They told me to eat less, count the calories, but I already ate so little. I agreed there was a problem, but it wasn't my weight. When I tried to explain, my mother, who had married a Brit and moved to England, told me to keep calm and carry on. My midwife said, let's talk about your next book instead. And another mother, who had just performed her 3rd successful home birth, said, sweetie, this isn't about you, it's about the child. I also warned Herb of my growing sense of ineptitude, the lengthening distance between the world and me. I told him I was certain I'd be a terrible mother. He'd waved away my worry like a pesky fly. Babe, you're so good with the dogs, he said. And I said, That's the thing, I thought. I'm better with other species. Which brings me to the animals that roam our neighborhood, thick as thieves, some of the lower 48's densest populations of mountain lions, black bears, and elk. Birds of prey swirl the sky, and coyote packs lope the periphery. Wolves are rumored to be here too, way ahead of efforts to reintroduce them. All of which is fine by me. I'm much more at home coming nose to nose with a large beast than I am caring for a small, helpless human. After a lifetime of moving with ease through the West's wild spaces, it's quite safe to say this business of mothering has stopped me dead in my tracks. I'd been certain, though, that having a baby would shapeshift me into a fierce sow grizz who'd defend her cub to the death, or a desert bighorn ewe who'd stand steadfast over her lamb so swooping eagles couldn't knock it from the cliff. Instead, my response was to go all Tharn, which for rabbits is the made-up language of Watership Down, describes how they press their bellies against the earth and lie motionless until danger passes. As a survival tactic, it's a good one. Prey that stays still often goes undetected. At the very least, freezing in place prevents a predator's chase instinct from getting triggered. This buys the rabbit time to find an escape route, and take it first chance it gets. We're 2/3 of the way through Ruby's first year, and I still can't tell if the coast is clear. Besides, I wouldn't know which way to split. In the Four Corners, there are so many choices, and so many chances to get lost. In any direction, at any elevation, our neighborhood is surrounded by millions of acres of wild terrain, wide open and ever-changing. Head east and you'll climb the high alpine spine of the Continental Divide. Go north or south and you'll be swallowed by thick groves of aspen and ponderosa pine. Run westward through sagebrush-flecked basins and ashen badlands. Dodge the spare intercostal ridges, fluted buttes, and all the mesas whiskered with pinyon and juniper. Continue in this direction and you'll soon enter red slick rock so bare and corporal you can't help but think pelvic, scapular. This last bit is where Colorado meets up with my home state, the place I thought I'd never leave, the place I'd fled just months ago, the place I'm stuck looking back at. As the daughter of Mormon immigrants who escaped famine and religious persecution in the British Isles, who were then chased from several settlements on the eastern side of the continent before they blazed the trail to Utah, west is the only way the needle points. Any other direction blows me off course, off script, off kilter. And this was the problem with leaving Utah for Colorado. Things headed in the wrong direction. I agree to meet the other mothers. They stand waiting as I park on the shoulder of a dirt road that runs along the river below our mesa, a body of water that will swell with runoff as the day warms, as spring tilts hard into early summer. Rose gold rays of sun slink down the canyon wall, hot on the tail of night's cool blue shadow. And how easily the other mothers laugh as they apply sunscreen to their baby's cheeks and each other's shoulders. Not since my baby was a jellied clump of cells have I laughed or touched anyone like that. Maybe I've not laughed or touched like that ever. We set off walking four abreast, all-terrain strollers out in front, the other mothers deep in conversation, the other babies sleeping. Ruby, a tumbleweed-haired girl with gray-green eyes like wet slate, still kicks and balls like an animal headed to slaughter. Verbal is the only skill that's not drastically delayed. In fact, it's way ahead of schedule. Out, Mama, out! Then, milk! The kid screeches the word, signing the last one, the liquid one, with a fist that yanks downward as if pulling on an udder. Between her demands and the river's roar, I barely catch what's being said. When mother number one first mentions eating her placenta, I think she says polenta. Mother number one is tall, Icelandic. She describes in a fluted voice like a meadowlark's how the midwife, a man named Bill, dried and ground her afterbirth into powder, which he poured into special order capsules. The regular ones, she explains, are made from cow hooves, and number one is averse to eating animals. Number two chimes in. She'd mixed hers in a morning smoothie. She said it was kind of chewy. Number three fried hers in a cast iron pan before she ate it with a steak knife and fork. With a breezy laugh, she says she oiled the pan, but it could have used a marinade. Ruby, my apologies to anybody who ate their placenta. I mean no offense. I know it's a thing. Ruby's face blooms a riotous red. Her body goes stiff as a board. I stop so the other mothers stop. They wait patiently as I unbuckle and scoop my kid from the stroller while I lift my shirt and shove a nipple between her howling lips. I try to look up and around, to let all the wild beauty bring the calm it never fails to deliver. A Stellar's jay scolds. The river rages. The canyon walls are closing in. Mother number 2 looks puzzled. Won't she take a bottle? I don't answer. I'm too jangled with the mother's big reveal, like I'm the only mom in the whole history of moms who hasn't eaten her own innards. I don't yet know that there's no real anthropological precedent, though I'm aware that many cultures revere, even personify the placenta, going so far as to treat it like family. In Indonesia, it's known as the baby sibling. In Russia's Ural Mountains, it's considered the child's real mother and outfitted with doll-sized clothes. Among groups that bury the afterbirth, and many do, Sumatrans believe the organ houses one of the child's 7 souls, which can rise from the earth to warn the other 6 of danger. In Siberia, if a child falls ill, the interred placenta is dug up and doctored as a patient. And the local Navajo, or Diné, as they prefer to be called, bury the afterbirth on ancestral lands, the lands I live on, the lands my family stole. So the child's spirit will be forever rooted in a way my child's never will. Such traditions make more sense than eating the thing as far as human organs go. The placenta is highly complex, second only to the brain. Compared to other mammals' placentas, the human version is said to invade the uterus, and it does so like a, quote, malignant cancer. As the other mothers pull ahead with their strollers, so I'm looking at their firm, slim backsides decked in cheerful colors of performance wear, I wonder, who wants to eat an organ with that much agency? My own placenta did, in fact, come home with us after Ruby was born. It was boxed in a carton of leftover Chinese takeout, which sat on ice in a cooler until I could stash it in the freezer. There was no real plan for it. But as a descendant of some of the West's most prolific colonizers, borrowing an indigenous tradition felt more than a little lame. And I wouldn't send it out like dry cleaning to be handled by a man named Bill. Still, there were practical questions. Whatever I did with the organ, should I thaw it first? Do I leave it in the takeout carton or transfer it to something nicer like a gift bag? And what if our 2 dogs dug it up? I'd seen them play tug of war with a prairie dog they'd killed, and it wasn't pretty. Maybe I could hang it on the clothesline and let it dry and shrivel in this gawking, ghastly sun. I could cut it into strips of jerky and take a Ziploc bag of it on the trail. 18 years later, as I write these words, the placenta remains in its original carton, soaked with kung pao chicken or mushu pork, the meals I devoured after giving birth. That carton still sits at the bottom of the deep freeze, beneath cuts of beef and lamb and venison, bearded with a thick white frost. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. I love that women's bodies are being celebrated every night this week. So thank you so much. Go women's bodies, yes. Although I'm going to be a little traumatized by that for a little bit. So as I mentioned before, Amy did lead our outpost on the Zoom Wall program. We have another outpost on the Snake River that's happening in September 3rd through 8th this year with Gary Ferguson and Mary Claire. It's a guided tour, guided 5-day river trip with Winding Waters River Expeditions. And there are still, I think, 5 or 6 seats left on the boat. First time that's ever happened. So if you are interested, general public, please go to fishtrap.org. If you are interested, Fishtrap folks, we have a special discount just for you, which will give you 40% off this trip for current registrants. There is a catch. You need to do this by the end of summer Fishtrap on the 14th. But this is a one-time, we've never done this before. It's a 40% discount. It is a deep discount. The trip is remarkable. I have done it. I couldn't recommend it more. So if you're interested, go to the website, come see one of us, and we will get you signed up. So spending 5 days with Gary Ferguson riding on the river doesn't sound all bad, does it? So, yeah. All right. I'm a little bit afraid about what's going to happen next. Lita, are you okay? You all right? All right. Gary Ferguson. All right. Come see me later, Lita. We'll get you set up. All right. Sharma Shields, we are so glad to have Sharma back again. I think this is your fourth summer Fishtrap, fourth, I think. Yeah. Boy, she's wonderful. So Sharma is the author of a short story collection, Favorite Monster, and 2 novels, The Sasquatch Hunter's Almanac and The Cassandra, which is wonderful. Sharma's short stories and essays have appeared in the New York Times, Electric Lit, Catapult, Slice, Slate, Fairy Tale Review, Kenyon Review, Iowa Review, Fugue, and elsewhere, and have garnered such prizes as the 2020 PNBA Pacific Northwest Book Association Award and a 2020 Artist Trust Fellowship, 2016 Washington State Book Award, the Autumn House Fiction Prize, the Tim McGinnis Award for Humor, and the A.B. Guthrie Award for Outstanding Prose. She is currently, she's managed a small press Scabland Books and is a contributing editor for Moss. Sharma has worked in independent bookstores and public libraries throughout Washington State and is currently, I love this because I'm stalking her posts, the writing education specialist for Spokane Public Library. Please welcome Sharma Shields to the stage.
Hi, everybody. I've got my American Library Association Free People Read Freely shirt on. Yes. So this is a week of love, which I love. I want to give some major gratitude and have us just applaud Shannon, Mike, Janice, Jennifer, the staff and volunteers. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you. And I want to give a shout out to my students in the visual storytelling class. We are having so much fun this week, and they have been so open-minded and flexible. And, just wanting to try everything, including making zines, and I'm so excited to show some of you these zines at the end of the week. It's going to be really fun. And it's cool that this is the Love Week because I'm teaching the class with my husband, Sam, over there, Simeon Mills, and that has been very romantic, as you can all imagine. I did find that when he was talking about Mira Jacobs' Good Talk yesterday, I had to rearrange my face because I was looking at him sort of gooily. So, sort of funny. So, I am going to read, I'm still deciding what I'm going to read. I'm deciding between this excerpt from a novel that I've been writing about Hans Christian Andersen, or just some really quirky short stories that maybe aren't even all that good, but they might make people laugh, which always feels good when you're reading them aloud. I think I'm going to read the short stories. Yeah? Okay. I think I'm going to read those. This was a very last-minute decision. Okay. Also, this is shorter, so you're welcome. This is going to be a shorter reading. Okay. This first 3 stories, this is a set called Sharpen Your Knives, 3 mother stories, and they're all microfiction. We've been writing a lot of microfiction this week. I heard one of the fellows give an awesome microfiction reading. Also, absolutely loved the readings I heard at the open mic today, including a scene someone read from their novel of lovemaking between these 2 men in singlets. Yes, Matt, it was awesome. It was awesome. And someone was writing about witches also today, which kicked ass, and I'm also reading about witches. So here we go. 1. Once upon a time, there was a woman who taught her children everything in reverse. When they wept, she clapped her hands together and exclaimed, "Look at you, you're so very happy." And when they laughed, she frowned and said, my, why so glum?" When they listened to music, she told them it was silence. When it was silent, she put her hands over her ears and cried, "Too loud." When they felt hunger, she told them they were satiated. She fed them only when they said they were full. Thirst was the opposite of thirst. Everything was so very contrary. "I hate you like nothing else," she told them, when she in fact meant that she loved them more than the moon and stars. The children grew up. They walked backwards to school and slept at the kitchen table and ate bacon and eggs in their beds. They were proud when they flunked their classes. They apologized to their mother when they did well. Their best friends were their enemies. Their enemies loved them. They read books upside down and washed themselves with clods of dirt. The sister was the brother, and the brother was the sister. Her vagina was a penis, his penis a vagina. When they were in a good mood, they punched and kicked at one another. In a foul mood, they played together generously. One morning, the mother woke from a disturbing dream in which her children were weak and trembling before the world. She rushed to them and said, "I've done this all wrong. Everything I've told you is backwards." The children told her they hated her very much. No, the mother pressed. She was in a panic, but did that mean she was actually quite calm? I mean it this time. Love is not hate. Hate is not love. Look at me, children. Listen to me when I tell you, I love you very much. The children hesitated a moment, then they burst into tears. The mother, relieved, sharpened her knives. 2. It's one story out of the way already, that quick. All right, 2. The witch mixed together a whole shitload of herbs, snips and snails and puppy dog tails, and stirred them into her cauldron. When it came to a roiling boil, she dropped in a ladle and lifted out a plump baby boy. She hadn't meant to fall in love with him, she'd meant to eat him. That's the thing about witches and babies. The witch eats the baby, and everyone calls her a bitch for it. That's how the story usually goes. And it wasn't that this witch wasn't hungry, she was famished. She hadn't eaten a child in weeks, had eaten only old toads and stinking mushrooms, and she was ready for a fleshy meal. She drooled as she uttered her incantations, she shuddered as she sharpened her knives. Half crazed with hunger, she lifted out the baby in her giant wooden ladle, and he steamed and wailed before her. She smelled how tender he was. She put a tongue on his arm and tasted his flesh. Through a blue vein coursed his bloodberry wine, the blood that would fill her, make her young and sensual again. But then he rubbed his eyes with his chubby fists and stopped crying long enough to give a big yawn. And she thought, oh, the little nubbins, the cherub of all cherubs. Her heart gave a big, long throb. She wrapped the newborn in a blanket she'd knitted from nettles, and he snuggled up against her shoulder. She held him there while she prepared and ate, again, a toad and mushroom omelet. She didn't let herself think of the word mother, but it occurred to her that she wanted no harm to befall this creature. She named him Fuzzling and put him in her bed, and he seemed comfortable there, sleeping soundly in his nettle blanket on a mattress stuffed with finger bones. There were times when she almost ate him out of spite or frustration or just a desperate desire for one dear moment alone. But the witch suffered through these moments and came out the other side renewed in her adoration. Fuzzling was her own. She found other ways to consume him. 3. The children never visited their mother, an old woman living in a candy cottage in the darkest heart of the forest. She sent them dense letters complaining of her loneliness. She left them long, rambling phone messages. Remember when you were little and I would comb your hair with a fish hook and sing to you about the goblins? Remember when I stood over your bed, breast bared, and drenched you with my sacred mother's milk? There was a time when you were afraid of the very moon, so I stood in the yard and shot her with an arrow, and she fell from the sky shrieking. How are you? Did you get the check I sent? Did you get that promotion? What sort of vacation time is there? How much is a ticket to the dark forest? She offered to buy the ticket for them, for their spouses, for her little grandchildren. I will not eat the grandchildren, she said. Not right away, at least. She laughed. She was such a joker. I miss them. I miss you. I'm getting old. My hair is falling out. My chin is still as sharp and long as a knife, but now there are gray hairs coming out of the mole. The children didn't respond. She wondered if maybe they'd never existed at all, if perhaps her entire life with them had been a figment of her imagination. In a cage in the corner of the living room swung the remains of 2 other children, the orphans who had stumbled onto her cottage and had eaten her gumdrop doorknobs, her chocolate bar shutters. She'd eaten them in turn months later after fattening them up with lard and oats. Were those, in fact, the children she was writing and phoning day in and day out? You were the best part of my life, she sobbed into the phone. You're all I have. The caged bones of the children listened carefully. That's the end. And I do just want to give a shout out to my children, Henry and Louise, who are in the audience. Their caged bones listening carefully. Now, I love you both so much, and I know that you're horrified right now with my saying that. And your friends are awesome, too. They're here, too, Lila and Lucas. All right. Okay. So this last story I'm going to read is a little bit longer. Not that long, though. And this story is about loving people you also need to protect yourself from and distance yourself from. And this is called Bandits. When Mom fell in love with the man of ash, we tried at first to be happy for her. We vacuumed, we mopped, we sang. We swept up the ashes without complaint. Even then, the thin film of him settled beneath our fingernails or whirled up at us from a plumped cushion, catching in our eyelashes. We muttered to each other as we combed him from our hair. We couldn't be rid of him even when we were alone. We'd loved the man of light. He'd shuffled through our house gently with his long, glowing hair. If we wanted space, and we always wanted our space, we could easily hide from him in the shadows. He didn't get all over us the way the man of ash did. But Mom felt very little for him, and then she felt nothing at all. He lived now in the downstairs broom closet, and it comforted us to know he was there, glowing alone in the darkness, even if we never ventured there to check on him. The man of ash was different. He paid us too much attention. I saw the way he watched Fern when her back was turned, his gray hooded eyes dark with hunger, his lips moving subtly within his shaggy charcoal beard. One day she passed too closely by him, and his dense, smoky arms unfurled and clasped her around the waist. He pulled her smoothly into his lap. For a moment, I couldn't see her. She was lost in the cloud of him. Nearby, Mom coughed. I lifted from my chair and hurried to my sister, groping for her hand. Let's go outside, I said, my fingers encircling her wrist, breathing in the fumy, deep smell of him. He met my eyes, scowling, but to my relief, he released her. Fern rose mechanically from his gloom, her dress filthy now and cindered, and Mom issued a nervous laugh. Like scared horses, my girls, she'd apologized. They're not used to men. But we were used to men, all sorts of them, the man of light, the man of thunder, the man of air, who flirted with Mom but stayed just out of her grasp. What we weren't used to was a man who wanted every part of us, who would smother and dirty and settle into us ruinously. If he touches you again, I told Fern once we were alone, I'll murder him. My tone frightened her. Nothing's happened, Minnie, she argued. I just got too close. It's not your fault, numbskull, I spat, and regretted my tone when she flinched. We grew careful then, edging along the walls, crawling near the baseboards. We threw buckets of water on the floor to try and sop up the ash that now carpeted our whole home, but it was futile. We retreated whenever we could to our bedroom or to the fresher air of the backyard and garden. One day after we weeded the garden beds, as I lay on my sore back on the lawn, I told Fern we should run away. My sister was always swift to argue with me, to call out my poor decisions. It wasn't the first time I'd suggested such an enterprise. She plopped down next to me on the grass, and I awaited a quarrel. Instead, she laced her fingers through my own. "This crystalline air," she said, "good for the lungs." She brought my hand to her mouth and kissed my knuckles in a goofy way, and I laughed. I was so grateful for this backyard, the garden we'd tended, the fresh air. The house was covered in his film now, the state of it worsening by the moment. "We'll be bandits," I said. "We'll leave them behind." Fern's smile flashed and then faded. Why does she always choose them over us? What's wrong with us? She'll never change. I know that now. Then I added irritably, "Nothing's wrong with us, Fern." Fern absently poked at a hole in her sneaker. "We'd be happy, just the three of us. Maybe one day she'll see it." For years, we'd done all we could to shake Mom out of her misery. We cooked, we cleaned, we gardened, we drew her bath, we ironed her clothes, we made the beds. But the drinking, the men, the poor choices continued. "A bandit's life for me," I sang, shaking Fern's hand gently. She sprawled out near me and put her head on my shoulder. "I hate everything," she said, as she sometimes did. "But I love you," I rejoined, most of the time anyway. From the open window in the house came a protuberant cloud of ash, billowing, settling, edging cunningly toward us. Fern eyed it warily, and I eyed her. "Minnie," she whispered, desperate now, "tell me what it will be like, our bandit life." We crept away from the house on hands and knees toward the small orchard with its squat apple trees. "We'll walk the railway all the way to the big lake," I said. We tucked ourselves behind the tree trunks, the tendrils of ash curling and uncurling, searching for us. "We'll cross the narrow bridge over the water and skirt the town. There will be an abandoned cabin in the trees not far from the river, and we'll break in through an unlocked window. It will be stuffy and dusty there, but no ash. We'll throw open the windows and doors, and we'll clean the entire place top to bottom until it glitters and gleams. It will be ours and ours alone." "And Martha the bear?" "Of course, Martha the bear is there too. And Peter the fox?" We were too old now for stuffed animals. We were menstruating girls who in normal situations would soon start public high school, but I wouldn't argue with her. "Yes, Peter too. From time to time, we'll steal into people's homes for food and supplies. We'll boil tea from dandelions and foxgloves. We'll braid columbine in our hair. In the summer, we'll bathe in the lakes, and in the winter, we'll tend the fire in the wood stove." "And Mom?" "Eventually, she'll come to live with us," I lied. "How will she know where to find us?" I shrugged. Just the idea of her coming for us at all had exhausted me. I wasn't sure she ever would or ever had. The house was quiet. Soon we knew she would call us to come inside to hug her. She would force us to hug him too. "We leave," I said, "or we choke." Fern rested her chin on one knee, her gaze on the house. Her face was slightly broader than my own, friendlier, but one of her eyes was darker brown than the other, so that she always seemed half in shadow. This was how people could tell us apart if they bothered. "Minnie," she said, "look." I twisted around to see. The yard was filling up with ash, smothering our garden. We could see the tiny trails of dying insects as they wiggled and flailed against the invasion. From the murky rooms, we heard Mom's cough, hacking now, violent. She'd absorbed too much of him. We pulled up our t-shirts over our noses, stepped across the powdery detritus, hurried to our room. "Tonight," I told her, reaching into our closet to retrieve our bags, "or else." To my relief, Fern agreed. Days passed, then months. In our dusky cabin near the big lake, we whiled away the hours. Men of stone, men of trees, men of water, men of ice, men of light and ash, none of them bothered us. Now it was just stone, trees, water, ice, light, and the sparkling dust made from our own living bodies. We no longer cleaned up daily, but on Mondays, and that suited us fine. We took jobs at the local grocery, one of us with a shift in the morning and the other with a shift at night. In the summer, we put on our jewel-colored jelly sandals and walked into town. We bought popsicles and perused books at the library. We knew disasters were unfolding, both near and far, but we paid them no attention. We were free from anyone's terror, but our own. I didn't tell Fern when Mom arrived. Fern was searching for fiddleheads in the woods. She wanted to make an omelet for supper. She was curious about a set of boys who we worked with at the grocery store. "They're not men of any one substance," she assured me, and she talked of inviting them over. I didn't encourage her or discourage her. After having a mother who didn't care enough, I didn't want to be a mother at all, only a sister, a friend. That evening, it was Mom's cough I heard first. The rattle of it rent the air. Its vibration skimmed across the lake. I'd been staring out at the calm water over a sinkload of dishes, daydreaming of late summer and swimming. We wondered if and when the family would return to their summer cottage, which we'd broken into swiftly and easily not long after crossing the narrow bridge, and we feared the moment of arrival the way we once had feared God. Earlier that day, in a bedroom bureau, I'd found a red swimsuit, and it fit perfectly. I'd stood in front of the bureau's large mirror, and Fern, holding Martha Bear on her lap, exclaimed that if it wasn't for the port wine stain across my chest, I'd look like a supermodel. We'd laughed for an entire night about that, imagining a more glamorous life for me as a catwalk ingenue. A life of caviar and expensive clothing and rich friends and loneliness. The opposite of what we shared now. And now, that familiar cough. I stepped outside, still wiping my hands on a dish rag, and there was our mother, a long, pale specter emerging from the tall grass. I crossed the gravel carport to speak with her, but Fern was already there, putting her arms around Mom and sobbing. Oh no, I thought. Fern would invite her in. Fern would make a new home for her, and it would all begin again, all of the neglect and harm. Mother coughed, and the ash sailed out from her lungs. The man of ash was inside her. She'd never be free of him, and she'd brought him to us like a disease. I heard what she mumbled to Fern, that she was sorry, that she was a terrible mother, and that she needed our help. Coughs erupted one after another, expunging dense scuds of volcanic rock and glass, and my sister, assailed by them, transformed into an old woman before my eyes, flesh and hair graying and singed. To my chagrin, she embraced our mother even harder, telling her she was understood, she was seen, and I sank into a paralysis of misery. Fern would be destroyed by her own capacity for love. I'd always known it. I couldn't approach and free her. My feet held fast to the gravel as if I were a newly planted tree. I prepared myself for the end of us. But then Fern, squeezing Mom even tighter, tears staining her ashen cheek, said, "I love you, but I can't let you near us now, Mom, for Minnie's sake, for my own." The embrace intensified. Mom's cough worsened. Her eyes bulged, her bones cracked. Muscles and viscera liquefied. Fern held her in such a tight embrace, her whole body rippling from the effort, that I worried the earth would open up beneath our feet, the sinkhole swallowing us all. I called out Fern's name to let go, to save herself. Hold on a second. But my voice only strengthened her resolve. She bore down, and the embrace became a vice, then a spike, then a fire. The heat of it assailed us. All at once, I regained my bearings and stumbled forward, blindly grasping for my sister's shoulders. The ash settled all around us. The clouds, having gathered darkly overhead, released a cleansing rain. In Fern's hands, she held what was left of our mother. A small ceramic ring, which Fern offered to me, gasping. "You wear it," I said. I was so grateful, so moved. We stood in the afternoon light, just the two of us, facing the water. Taking up her hand, a hand I knew as well as my own, my flesh grazed the thread-like circle near her knuckle, the small, firm proof of Mom's remaining love. The rain sluiced over us, returning my sister's youth to her, the gray melting from her hair in grotesque clumps. I was shocked at how strong she'd become, how resolute. I gave her hand a squeeze and then let go. Before us, the lake was just lake. The stone was just stone. The light was just light. The boys my sister wanted to befriend were just boys. This was what I hoped anyway. We allowed the day to yawn before us, as filled with potential for good and ill as any of us living beings. I breathed deeply the petrichor. I hid my naked hands in my sleeves. Thank you all.
Y'all are gonna kill me. I don't know what to say. Thank you so much, Sharma. My gosh. Is everybody okay? We're gonna do a little really strange segue, right? It's time for the Fish Trapper raffle. Are you ready? Yay! So just a reminder, we're doing a Fish Trapper raffle every day for all the current Fish Trappers, and we've had some new ones this week. Thank you very much. The prize today, you can see, is in a handy-dandy, lovely Fish Trap tote. You can get your own tote at the Fish Trap store inside. It will hold everything that you bring back from you from Wallowa County and all the books. I wrote that myself. So there you have it. We also, before we get going on this, I also want to remind you too, the raffle and the silent auction will end on Saturday. If you've not bought raffle tickets, do that today. They are tomorrow or Saturday. They are $5 each, or I just forgot, or 6 for $25. Wowzers. Okay, I'm going to blame Sharma. There it is. Are you ready? It's okay. I'm excited. Okay. Hobbs? Okay. We're all a little loopy today. Okay.
Ooh, okay, this is a tough one. Lorraine Ward.
There she is. Okay, right back. Pardon? Okay, you can bring it back to her. Thank you.
Really cool.
And maybe if you're nice, she'll let you look at it. So there you have it. And again, remember that if you are a current Fish Trapper, if you won tonight, your name will go back in for Saturday night's drawing, which is a free registration to next year's Summer Fish Trap. So thank you for that. I'm so excited to welcome this woman back to stage, Rena Priest. Oh my gosh, how many of you heard her read here last year? That reading, I told Rena earlier tonight, that stuck with me. I have sent it out to friends. I have sent it, we used it just, I can't even tell you. I actually went back and rewatched it right before Summer Fish Trap. You are a remarkable person, and we're so glad you're back. Rena Priest is an enrolled member of the Lemmy Nation. She served, I didn't want to try. I tried. She served as Washington State 6th Poet Laureate from 2021 to 2023. Her work has been recognized with an Allied Arts Foundation Professional Poets Award and fellowships from the Academy of American Poets, Indigenous Nations Poets, Neotero, University of Washington Libraries, and the Vedon Foundation. Her debut collection, Patriarchy Blues, which is wonderful, received an American Book Award. Her most recent book, Northwest Know-How Beaches, includes poems, retellings of legends, and fun descriptions of 29 of the most beloved beaches in the Pacific Northwest. She's also the editor of 2 anthologies, The Larger Voice, celebrating the work of Native Arts and Cultures Foundation, Foundation Literature's Fellows, and I Sing the Salmon Home, Poems from Washington State. Her work appears widely in print and online, and she lives in Bellingham, Washington on her Lemmy homelands. Please welcome Rena Priest to the stage.
Ait sgwan ysjalacha, o helixen quinasatla tiakaya, sahualtanat sanasnat. Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here with you all this evening. I'm just going to unpack here because, I brought it all just in case. I don't know what I'm going to read either, so we're just going to wing it. We're going to fly by the seat of our pants here. But I think I'll open with a couple of poems from Patriarchy Blues, because I was like, okay, love poetry. What do I have? I don't know. let's look here. This one is kind of fun. It's called Van der Waals Force. You take my hand, look at my fingerprints, and ask, did I ever tell you how a gecko sticks to the ceiling? You explain how gecko toes have grooves that turn into a forest of hairs, which have smaller subhairs with a forest of smaller subhairs, and so on until at the very tips are atoms. So the gecko toe and the ceiling atoms are joined, become one, momentarily indistinguishable, and it's so freaky cool, you say. The military has studied it. They've tried, but they can't manufacture anything like that. Okay, here's a love poem. It might not seem like it, but I'll explain. When you are blue, I slap your lovely face and laugh, and slap your face again, then shake your name into your chest. I kiss your purple slanted lips, and slap your lovely face again. You are still and blue like 4 a.m. We've been through this before. I know the limits of true love's kiss, so I slap your lovely face some more. You gasp and murmur, stop hitting me, your cheeks now pink with sting. I sigh and say, oh, sweetheart, for blueness it's the only thing. So that's a love poem because I had this, when I was younger and much wilder, I had this love that used hard drugs, and he would sometimes overuse hard drugs. And this happened more than once. And I read this poem in Spokane after 20 years. He's still alive, by the way, so. So I read this poem in Spokane after 20 years at Nito Burrito, and there was someone in the audience who we knew from back then, and he was like, I know who that is. I was like, yes, you do. All right, one more from this collection. And he's okay, too. He survived his 4th open heart surgery, so hooray. Yeah, he used to always worry about, like, dying young, and I'm pretty sure he's just going to outlive everybody. All right, this poem is called Faithful. Every day she prays, Lord, please let me leave that man alone. Often she means the deli worker with graceful, meaty hands who looks as if he's imagining her climax face as she tells him how much salami she needs. Sometimes that man is the contractor renovating her kitchen. She imagines the white smudges of his fingers on her body and how she'd fit in his angles like a glistening blush of pink insulation. Alone in her apron, she is the Betty Crocker of suffering and refrain. In her dishpan hands, sweetness denied, affection withheld, disappointments bitter as baker's chocolate become decadent. She turns it all to devil's food while she harmonizes with her appliances in the wistful song of sighs that is the music of breakfast, lunch, and supper, the dirge of a faithful household angel. So that's the first collection, Patriarchy Blues, and they have that for sale here. And I forgot to do this, so welcome to Indian country. Where is Indian country? It's everywhere we stand. It's anywhere we dance. It's where the earth loves the feel of our feet. Welcome to Indian country. What does that mean? It means this is where we lift our voice in song and make a joyful drumbeat for our hearts to sing along. Welcome to Indian country, this beloved country here, where we honor our ancestors by growing stronger every year, by making laughter the answer that wipes away our tears. Welcome to Indian country. What does the future hold? In uncertain times like these, we reach for words like hope and things we can be sure of, sunrises, beauty, love. Welcome to Indian country. It's everywhere we dance and where the feast is truly grand. Welcome to Indian country. Now give us back our land. Okay, this one is new, and it's going to be in a documentary about Seattle, and it's called To the Waterkeepers. In the timeline of Hals, the great changer, our human lives are the blink of an eye, a snowflake falling on a blue glacier, wispy breath of cloud in an azure sky, particle of mist lifting a rainbow from a waterfall's dramatic cascade. And though our lives are but a flake of snow, drop of rain, sparkle of a cresting wave, together we are also the glacier, the salmon stream, the endless turning tides, ebbing and flowing. We are the changer. In us, the spirit of water resides. We have been here for a very long time, holding sacred knowledge that water is life. He said I had 30 seconds. I was like, wow, okay. So like a sonnet then. To talk about the importance of water to the region. Yeah. Things move fast in documentaries, apparently. Okay, so this next one is my love poem to salmon, because they're so great. Salmon, see, look. I found this bracelet in Alaska. It's a piece of salmon. Isn't that just the coolest thing? Okay. Anyways, enough of that. Enough goofing around. The miracle of the fishes. I don't want to get into a thing where we're arguing about whose spiritual hero is better. But salmon are more powerful than Jesus. All salmon are born from virgins. Actually, they're born right up out of the earth. Female salmon lay eggs in the riverbed. The males come and fertilize them. No male-female contact is made. How chaste. Young salmon make their journey to the sea, then return to perform the miracle of the fishes. They spawn and die in their nutrient-rich bodies, and blood infused with the minerals of the living sea feed all living beings in the salmon's natal stream. A salmon needs only itself and its journey to perform this miraculous feat. This beautiful and holy communion between salmon and all living things has been happening longer than people have been on this planet. On the other hand, basic transubstantiation requires a priest, a church, an altar, a tabernacle, an altar boy, a glass of wine, a tray of wafers, a bell, a Bible, dogma, an initiated congregation. The Spanish Inquisition. A history of burning women as witches. A history of stealing and starving Indian kids. A history of holy wars. A history of displacing and murdering heathen Indian in the name of God. In order to propagate a story about a boy born from a virgin whose body and blood we eat and drink so that we shall be saved. Saved from what? Not from hunger or thirst, but from the everlasting damnation in the burning pits of hell, which if I close my eyes to visualize, look suspiciously like hunger and thirst on this broken and burning earth. Thank you. So this next poem, this was written to accompany a song by my friend Delbert Anderson, who is now becoming a renowned trumpet player. He's Dene from Shiprock, and we have traveled together and done lots of shows over the last 3 years. And he told me a story about a landscape located in Aztec, New Mexico. There's a national monument called the Ark, and underneath the Ark, there's a little dried up wash, and it probably only goes about 30 or 40 feet, but it's perfect and untouched. And there are no footprints, bushes, or leaves on it. It's just a flat surface, and it's perfectly straight. So Delbert told me the story of how he went to his elders, and they told him that this old wash in the desert is called the Heart Passage. And since we're talking about the theme of love, I'm going to share this poem. The name goes back to how when the human is born, we're perfect. Everyone is perfect at the very beginning. But when the world gets a hold of us, that's when we start to develop different characteristics and stresses and all these different things. And the heart passage is something that the people need to get back to when things get too crazy. The elders told Delbert, always remember you're a perfect human being inside. And so he wrote this beautiful song to symbolize that heart passage, and this poem is inspired by that, and normally he accompanies it. So it's a little more sing-songy than I normally write, but maybe not. And it's normally set to his music. So I thought it would be a nice thing to share with you all tonight. On the path we walk toward purpose, if we feel we've lost our way, if our confidence deserts us and we fear we've gone astray, when the road stretched out before us is a challenging terrain, this is when we search our heart for a passage back to grace. Our heart has wisdom to impart if we are true and brave, and though the night is dark, there is always a new day. When every door we try is locked and the view out every window is of that lonely road we walked, full of worry, want, and woe. When the stream of life within is blocked by living in our sorrow, this is when we search our heart for a passage to tomorrow. Our heart has wisdom to impart if we are true to what we feel. Yes, indeed the night is dark, but our heart has answers to reveal. It says living is a simple art when we follow our true, perfect being, and will not stumble in the dark when we let our heart do all the seeing. Okay, let's see here. I'm not finding, I printed out new stuff to share with you all. I can't find it, but I'll find it. In the meantime, I'll read The Known Location of the Soul. I think of the handsome Kurdish man on the train in Germany. When I felt motion sickness, he held me and told me, it's a symptom of your soul not keeping pace with your body. Later, I relayed this fact to another lover who said, no, it's from the bones of your inner ear not being able to match what you're seeing with what you're doing. Then your soul is in your inner ear, I said. No, he said. Yes, I said, and that was the end of that. Well, gosh, where is this? Maybe it's in the bag. Ta-da! Okay, all right. This next poem, sometimes my poems are based on a true story, like this one. It's called Ode to the Aunties. Our beautiful indigenous aunties, aunties of all kinds, anti-casino bucks, anti-nail salon, anti-bingo butt, anti-quad shot Starbucks cups, church auntie, role model auntie. You all know role model auntie. She gives everyone rides and cooks for the people and crochets at gatherings and gives good advice, bits of wisdom like, don't be drinking that champagne, you'll end up with your lipstick on crooked all the time. Like you're snagging Auntie so-and-so. Yeah, snagging Auntie, AKA the deadly auntie. I had a deadly office auntie at my old job. One time she was telling me about her work crush. She goes, I'm going to ask him to coffee. I was like, work-related coffee? And she was like, no, snag-related coffee. Oh OMG, Auntie, TMI. And then, there's that one auntie, usually the oldest sister, the OG auntie, who just keeps it so real that if you're ever bad around her, she gives you a look so mean you flinch like she took a swing. This auntie, she loves you so much that if she ever braids your hair, it's up so tight that it's not going anywhere. And your ears lift higher up on your head, like way up here, so that you can hear her better when she says real auntie things like, be careful with that internet dating. You'll end up married to a Juanitum, like your crazy Auntie Rena. What would we do without the love of our aunties? So I'm going to go ahead and close with a longer poem, and this poem was written, it was started here at Fishtrap last summer, and it was inspired partly by the participants in one of my cohorts, and his name was Richard. He probably doesn't want his whole name, but anyways, he had this poem, and the line was, "Sometimes sadness is honey." And we were doing an exercise that was like, you take one line of what you were writing before and then imagine it differently. And so I hadn't written anything, so I just poached his line. And the donuts, if you don't know, the donuts in this poem are the famous Valley's donuts, which this is your last chance, y'all. I reserved my Valley's donuts, so if you know, you know, okay? And the river is this river, okay? These long days of self-restraint. Sometimes sadness is a donut, sweetness, consequences, the sadness of the middle of life when you're about halfway done, barring any unexpected tragedy. And having lived, you know better about so many things that you wish you didn't. Donuts, partying till dawn, and beautiful people who don't love you. And all the while, death is right there waiting for you through those long days of self-restraint, and you wonder if abstaining from vice actually prolongs life or if it just feels that way because being good is so dull that it alters the fabric of reality, slowing down the feeling of time. In the church days of your youth, when mother was trying to be saved from these exact same feelings of desperate ennui, you remember someone saying, the wages of sin is death, but the gift of God is eternal life. And now you think, if you must suffer this tedium eternally, it would be much better to have a great time sinning and go out on a high note. Though you must admit there is something about living for the warmth of summer and the sound of the river and the beautiful people who do love you, and by you, of course, I mean me. I don't drink or do drugs anymore. I keep sane company. It's been ages since I've had the excitement of slapping an overdosed companion back from oblivion. I don't smoke cigarettes. This is not true right now. Sometimes I smoke cigarettes. Right now I smoke cigarettes. So I told my students today to lie in a poem sometimes, to tell the truth. Like sometimes the lie is the better truth. And so we'll just pretend I didn't tell you the truth. Carry on believing I don't smoke cigarettes. I rarely show cleavage, and only occasionally do I indulge in the sadness of donuts. This is all the excitement I have left, really. Red lipstick and this shameless exhibition that horrifies my mother and shames my father. This jaunty ecstasy of writing down heartaches and intimacies and sharing them with you all. Hoping you will sigh or laugh, uncomfortable laughter, the laughter of recognition, perhaps. Or even better, the laughter of fear. Of what? I don't know. Perhaps that I'm coming to get all that stolen Indian land back. And you will have to fight me to the death and win again. I don't know, but the best laughs are made when we're afraid. But let me tell you this. 2 surgeries ago, they took a tumor from behind my jaw. They called it a neoplasm of uncertain behavior. Neoplasm of uncertain behavior. It sounds like a version of my younger self living behind my jaw. It was tangled up in my facial nerves, and one wrong move by the surgeon could have been disfiguring, could have made me look bored forever. The way Mother always said, better watch out, your face will get stuck like that, whenever I made a sour expression. But the relevant bit is this. As the anesthesia took hold, in that moment before oblivion, I was overtaken by glorious bliss. Bliss so powerful, a feeling that when I learned I must undergo yet another operation, I found myself excited to have anesthesia. Just for that fraction of a second. But as the procedure drew near, I began unexpectedly to have fears, because after a lifetime of struggle and woe, I finally have some peace and tranquility, and now on these long days of self-restraint, though it sometimes feels like I'm not truly living, rarely do I spend my days resisting the urge to die. So there I was, about halfway done with life, barring any tragedies, and having lived knowing better about so many things, knowing that even with all the frailty and aches of aging, it's better to have that second half, and knowing that anesthesia, like any voodoo, is risky, can turn on you, take you to death's door, then through. I was afraid. I was afraid. I put my affairs in order, and by this I mean I threw out 25 years' worth of journals filled with soppy self-pity, then made a will. Making a will was humbling, having so little in the end to give. Reading the journals was even more humbling, having so little in the end to say. The journals are dull until my daughter appears. Leela shows me a page. Oh, by the way, I thought it was so sweet the other night when Aaron talked about, he read about his daughter and he asked her permission if he could read that piece, and she said yes, so he had permission. I asked my daughter if I could read this piece, and she said no. The journals are dull until my daughter appears. Leela shows me a page from a book that says, "Short people don't like to be picked up." It's true, she says. How do you know, I ask? Do people at school try to pick you up? Let's just say I know it's true, she says. Do they? Do people at school try to pick you up, I ask? Against my will, I start to laugh. She laughs, then lifts her butt and farts. I'm like a skunk, she says. I fart when I feel threatened. She is laughing hard now. We both are. She farts again and says, I feel threatened, and runs off laughing and tooting down the hall. A few pages later in that same journal, I never knew that yawns were so great until Leela told me how she learned that if you touch your tongue while you're yawning, you'll stop yawning. I tried it, and mid-yawn, I just stopped. It was the most awful feeling. I don't have anything to compare it to. Nothing to say except that it felt like a yawn unfinished. In a later journal, I find my favorite, Leela's Law of Triangles. Eventually, you'll have something you really want because you just can't be unhappy forever. No one's just unhappy forever all the time. Who knows unhappiness better than a middle schooler? In a way, these 3 journal entries are the story of my life. In the beginning, I am short and able to be picked up against my will. I am put on the spot, and so I make a stink because I feel threatened. I am tired and bored and discover that I don't even have the satisfaction or relief of a yawn. Eventually, I have something I really want because no one's just unhappy forever all the time, and now here we are. I have survived the surgery, a long overdue hysterectomy, and in my days of recovery on the sofa, these long days of self-restraint, at the peak of summer, I must refrain from swimming, must not lift anything heavier than 10 pounds, must not walk too vigorously, must not sneeze lest I bust a stitch. So I lie around and doom scroll as my muscle mass softens and a headline proclaims, "It is economically rational for ambitious women to try as hard as possible to be thin." Remember, sometimes sadness is a donut. Sadness sneaks up on you and you realize that your life is halfway through and your uterus is gone and your only child is grown. On the other hand, you're wiser now and your uterus is gone and your only child is joyful and grown. So sometimes a donut is happiness and life is right there waiting for you. Thank you all so much, and thank you to all the organizers of Fishtrap, and thank you to all you lovely fish trappers out there. Have a good night.
I mean, come on. Can we thank all these wonderful women tonight? Yeah. About every emotion you can imagine, so thank you so much. So tomorrow, Friday afternoon, 1:30, a craft talk with Sam Mills, stories with pictures and words. Yes, you can create comics, so come here at 1:30. 3 o'clock, we have one of our partner organizations, the wonderful Nez Perce Wallowa Homeland, who will be here to talk about love and ancestral homelands, the connection between homeland and identity and indigenous culture with their wonderful JC So Happy, who will be here. And also know, if you are still around next weekend, the Tamkalix Powwow is happening in the Homeland Grounds. So please come in to that at 3 o'clock. 4 o'clock, open mic readings. Again, the sign up opens at 8 o'clock. When it's full, that thing's coming, I'm sorry, 8:30, sorry. Oh, I got Joe, holy cow. Y'all scare me. Can I just say just a little bit? Opens at 8:30. When it's full, it's down here. Don't yell at us. You guys are just wowzers. And I will say this, if you've read already, do think about giving some other folks a chance to fill in that, and don't yell. It's all good. And then Friday night, tomorrow night, wonderful faculty readings from Timsy Hernandez, Nina McConaughey, and Laura Pritchett. Book signing tonight afterwards. All of these women have books up at the book loft. Please stop in and say hi, get your book signed. Have a good night. I'm glad to be chilly, and we'll see you tomorrow.